Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Governor, Christie.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. President, thank you very much, and members of the board and faculty, distinguished guests, the graduates and your family, thank you very much for your warm welcome. As I come up here today, I am reminded of what my son, who's now a sophomore in college, pleaded with me when I was invited to be the commencement speaker at his high school graduation. He said, "Please be short and don't embarrass me." I think that that's probably a good guide for any commencement speech. Be short and don't embarrass anybody. That's my goal today. It's the end of your hard work in college, and you're being acknowledged for that today by us and by your families. As the President said, education can be a great equalizer. It can make opportunity possible for you, no matter where you're from, no matter where your family is from, no matter where you began economically. It can make a difference in your life. It can open doors. It's also a responsibility. It's a gift that you've been given that gives you a responsibility to use it in a way that helps not just to better your own lives and the lives of your family, but I think to better the lives of the places you choose to live over the course of your life. But it's not a guarantee of anything. You know, we've seen many people over the course of our country's history, some with extraordinary education, who didn't use it in a way that bettered their lives or the lives of others. And we've seen others with little or no education who have changed our country's history completely. So today, what you are receiving in that opportunity is something that sets the stage, gives you the moment now to decide what your life will be. I believe, in the end, what will determine your success or your failure will be how hard you're willing to work. In the end, I think that's the determining factor in most success or failure in life, is how you get yourself out of bed every morning, what you see when you look in the mirror, and then what you're willing to do once you walk out the door. Are you willing to give it your all? And if you do, will you really then make a difference in your life and the lives of others? I could cite lots of examples for you of why how hard you work will be the determining factor. I'm sure you already have many examples of those in your life. I'll give you the example of one person. This was a person who came to the United States on a boat from Sicily, who was actually born on that boat between Sicily and the United States. A person who came here, young woman, growing up in Newark, New Jersey, who, because of the circumstances and the way our society and her culture operated at that time, at a very young age, was put into an arranged marriage, something that we can't even conceive of today. Her parents selected her husband for her based on their appreciation for the family he came from. So she entered that arranged marriage and soon had 3 children. But by the time her first daughter turned 10 years old in 1942, she became aware of the fact that her husband was being unfaithful. Now, at that time, in that culture, that was something that women were expected to accept. But this woman had absolutely no intention of accepting that. In fact, She did the exact opposite. She kicked him out of the house and filed for divorce in 1942. This was simply not done back then very often. She was 33 years old. She had no education at all past middle school. And she now had 3 children to raise on her own because the family that she had been arranged into said it was a disgrace that she filed for divorce, and there were no laws at that time forcing them or her husband to support her and their children. And so what did she do? She went out and she looked for a job. And she got a job at the Internal Revenue Service in Bloomfield, New Jersey. She didn't know how to drive, didn't have a driver's license, couldn't afford to buy a car. So she took 3 buses every morning beginning at 6 a.m. to arrive at work by 8 a.m. Her 10-year-old daughter was in charge of her 7-year-old sister and her 4-year-old brother to make sure they got to school and daycare with lunches, and then pick them up after school because this woman wouldn't arrive home until 7 p.m. Every year at Christmas, they rewrapped the gift they had gotten the year before. And that's what they were given for Christmas because they had no money. Many nights, they went to bed hungry, but no nights did they go to bed alone. They had each other. This woman worked without a support system except for her own belief in herself, and her own belief in the fact that her pride, her independence, and her knowledge of who she saw in the mirror was more important than anything else, and she worked for the rest of her life to do that. That woman became my grandmother. And as I grew up, I became closer to her than I was to any person in the world. I went to visit her 2 weekends a month and stay at her apartment. And there were a number of rules that went along with that. On Saturday mornings when I would leave my home and go to hers, the first thing we would do is walk to the library, where she would return the 3 books she had borrowed the Saturday before, having read all 3 of them, and get 3 new ones. And I would have to get 1 for myself. I wasn't allowed to watch television except for 2 things, and this has led to 2 of my great obsessions in life, I guess. I was allowed to watch 1 college football game on Saturday afternoon, and I was allowed to watch Meet the Press on Sunday. At 8 years old. She taught me that your life is not determined by what you don't have, but what you are willing to do. She never remarried, yet she had a full life. She worked all these years at a government job, yet found ways to save money where she traveled the world. We used to travel once a month into New York City, and she would take me to things I had absolutely no interest in. We'd go to museums that I was bored by. She took me to the opera. Imagine me at the opera. Even then, it seemed incredible. We went to Mass every Sunday morning, and she continued to remind me about just what the President said, how lucky I was to have the opportunities that she saw in front of me. Every week, until I turned about 15, I thought about going, and every other week I did. And the things that I learned from her, most importantly, was that her life was full despite all of its challenges because of the experiences she had and how hard she worked to get those experiences. You wouldn't have looked at her and had thought that she would have had a successful life given where she began. But she lived to the age of 92. And she saw her grandson appointed U.S. Attorney for New Jersey weeks before she passed away. And I remember sitting with her as she was suffering and getting ready to pass, just as I'd been appointed by the President of the United States to be United States Attorney. And she said to me, "Can you imagine how I feel that my grandson, I was born on a boat coming over here, no education, nothing but my own hard work and what I was able to create for myself through the grace of this country, and now you're being appointed to something by the President of the United States." She looked at me and said, "My life is full." Her life was full because her hard work was an example both to me and to everyone she came in contact with. She never complained about the challenges, and she always talked about the opportunities. It's a great lesson for all of us who have been given so much more than that. We tend these days to focus on the negative. We tend to complain about what we don't have or what hasn't been provided to us. We daydream about all the things that we might be without often thinking about how available it is to us because of the things we've already been given. I learned from my grandmother. She laid that foundation for me. And she taught me that hard work is the key to every success in your life. Whether it's hard work at your career, hard work at your studies, hard work at your marriage, hard work as a parent. There is joy in hard work. You have a leg up that you've earned today. And that leg up is the education that you've gotten here at Rowan. And now it truly is up to you. And because of the education you have, no one will presume that there are any limits to your life. You will determine, and you alone will determine the limits to your life. And I believe it'll be only determined by your willingness to dream, and most importantly, how hard you're willing to work to get there. In the year that would have been my grandmother's 100th birthday, I was elected governor of New Jersey. And I thought often during that campaign, her birthday was September 10th, and I thought often from that day forward to Election Day, how amazed she would have been to see what was happening and what might happen. And the day after the election, one of the places that I went to visit was her burial site. I went there just as a sign of respect, to let her know that I understood that I would not have been there without the example she set for me. I'm not unique. I'm sure for almost every person in this audience, you have someone like my grandmother in your life. Don't believe that the only people who can set examples for you and help you to get where you want to get to are the obvious choices. Sometimes they are the people with the greatest challenges, who've worked hard, achieved much in their own personal lives, but set an example for you for everything that you could be, even if what you will achieve in material gain and public notoriety will be well beyond anything they achieved in their lives, or quite frankly, anything they probably could have dreamed was realistic for you. I know today that my grandmother looks down and shakes her head, often probably, at some of the things that come out of my mouth and at some of the extraordinary opportunities that life has already presented to me. All of you I hope both in your heart and in your spirit, understand that today is just the opening of that door to extraordinary opportunity. And I hope that you know that the people here with you today, myself included, believe in the infinite possibilities for what you can make your life become over the course of the next decades. Believe in yourself as much as those around you believe in you. Work as hard as you can. And because of everything else you've achieved here, I believe you too will experience a great American life, just like my grandmother did, just like I have. Although very different, they're both great American lives, and you will now write your story. Write it with hard work, write it with belief in yourself, write it with the knowledge that every morning when you get up, you have the possibility to do something really, really special. Do that. And then at the end of your life, I think you'll feel the same way that my grandmother felt about hers. My life is full. Thank you all very much.